By now you should have the frequency curve balanced perfectly, and you have your dynamic range under control. It is time to maximize the loudness of your song. This is typically the final stage of your mastering chain. There are several plugins on the market that can take care of this task quite effectively, some of course better than others. However, no matter which product you choose, they all have the same method as to how they work. They are brick wall limiters with a gain control that allow you to increase the overall volume without going over a predetermined threshold. Again, as we touched on in the last chapter, these tools can make it easy to fall victim to the loudness war. Back in the days of analog recordings, tape and LPs had a lower tolerance to hot RMS levels. If the levels got too hot, there would be saturation and distortion. Therefore, the levels had to be kept within a certain range. However, with the digital medium, the tolerance to hotter and louder recordings has increased. As long as you keep the peaks under 0 dB in the digital world, there is no saturation or distortion to worry about. In fact, it is perfectly normal to go over 0 or to clip the odd peak here and there, and the ear would not notice. And with these tools, it is possible to increase the loudness to these hot levels while keeping the peaks under 0 dB. There are actually two methods that are commonly used when maximizing the loudness: limiting and clipping. Some of the plugins will do only one of the two. Some can do both, such as Isotope's Ozone. We'll first have a look at limiting. Limiting works much the same as the compression we looked at in the last chapter. The main difference is the ratio in the attack settings. A limiter will typically have a fixed and very fast attack setting as well as a high ratio. The job is not to allow any peaks to go beyond the threshold setting. Here I have demonstrated what such a limiter would look like. Often these limiters will have a release setting which allows you to smooth out compression of the limiter. As a general rule here, the more limiting that is applied, the longer the release setting should be so that the audio does not have any pumping. Another tool that can be used to maximize the loudness is a clipper. A clipper works by basically clipping the peaks at a predetermined threshold as opposed to compressing them. The advantage of a clipper over a limiter is that you are not actually compressing the audio, so there's no need to worry about release times or any other artifacts introduced by compression. There are two types of clippers: soft clipping and hard clipping. Soft clippers work by gradually reducing the volume as the peaks begin to reach the threshold. This allows the clip to have a softer sound and can resemble the natural saturation that can be found with analog devices and tape recordings. Here I am demonstrating how the clipper works with GVST's G-Clip. This is an excellent freeware clipper that has both hard and adjustable soft clipping. Which method you choose will largely depend on your personal taste and the style of music you are working with, or even at the request of a client. In terms of loudness, if you are thinking as loud as possible, forget it. In fact, too loud will cause ear fatigue and will create the listener to actually lose interest in listening to your music. So how loud should it be? This has been under debate, but a few respected mastering engineers in the industry have proposed a set of standardizations for the loudness of music material. For example, Bob Katz has put forward to the industry his idea on loudness standards, known as the K-meter system. This particular system, personally, I find to be a great proposal and a great guide when maximizing the audio levels. In this demonstration, I'm going to show a few different plugins to maximize the levels. The first one I'm using here is once again Isotope's Ozone. I have set the maximizer to be a clipper as opposed to a limiter. The Ozone maximizer also comes with a histograph that shows you the RMS levels of your audio over the last few seconds. This helps you get a good idea of how much gain you need to apply. If supported by your RMS meter, try to set the response speed to a slower value. This will be easier to see how much gain is required than if your meter was responding faster. Blue Cat Audio Digital Peak Meter is great for this. Before you start applying any gain, make sure your threshold is set to just under 0 dB. I'll typically set my threshold to -0.01 dB. Using the RMS level as your guide, Apply gain to your RMS levels are averaging around -12 dB on the louder portions of your audio source. This should give you all the loudness you need. Another thing that would be a good idea to check into when choosing your RMS meter or even your limiter clipper is to see if there's support for the K-meter system. As the system is being widely accepted, there are a few plugins now that will allow you to adjust the output meter to follow these standards. For example, with Voxino's Span, you can select the meter type to match one of the K-metering standards. When the song is played through, this meter will show you a plus or minus value. If it is minus, then you have more room to increase your loudness. If it is positive, then it's too loud. In other words, try to get it to 0 dB to meet the K-meter standards. Again, depending on the loudness maximizer you are working with, you may have some additional features that are available to you. For example, some might have dithering built in. If you are working with 24 or 32-bit files and you are mastering for CD, then you'll need to dither down to 16-bit. There may be other options, such as Ozone that has a DC filter to ensure that there are no DC offset errors in the final output. So by this point, we have taken a look at the 3 most common steps when mastering. However, there are other tools that are often used to add shine or body. In the next few chapters, I will be sharing some tips that will help you perfect your mastering.